was this huge expose in this magazine called 972 about how Israel was using AI to target suspects, but ended up killing huge numbers of civilians. It's called The Lavender. A very interesting piece.
So the technology wound up killing people who were not even targeted?
Yes.
It's pretty dark. What about surveillance?
I think this recent AI boom, I think it could be used for surveillance. I'm not sure if it gives a special advantage. I think they can get the advantage by, again, if these lobbying groups are successful, part of their ideal outcome is to make sure that no one is training large language models. And to do that, you would need to insert surveillance apparatus at the compute level. And so perhaps that's very dangerous. Our computers would spy on us to make sure we're not training AIs. I think, the kind of AI that's really good at surveillance is kind of the vision AI, which China sort of perfected. So that's been around for a while now. I'm sure there's ways to abuse language models for surveillance, but I can't think of it right now.
What about manufacturing?
It would help with manufacturing. Right now, people are figuring out how to do, I invested in a couple companies that, how to apply this technology foundation models to robotics. It's still early science, but you might have a huge advancement in robotics if we're able to apply this technology to it.
So the whole point of technology is to replace human labor, either physical or mental, I think. I mean, historically, that's what, the steam engine replaced the arm, et cetera, et cetera. So if this is as transformative as it appears to be, you're going to have a lot of idle people. And that's, I think, the concern that led a lot of your friends and colleagues to support UBI, Universal Basic Income. There's nothing for these people to do, so we just got to pay them to exist. You said you're opposed to that. I'm adamantly opposed to that. On the other hand, what's the answer?
Yeah. So, there's two ways to look at it. We can look at the individuals that are losing their jobs, which is tough and hard. I don't really have a good answer, but we can look at it from a macro perspective. And when you look at it from that perspective, for the most part, technology created more jobs over time. Before alarm clocks, we had this job called the knocker-upper.
Yeah.
Which goes to your room, you kind of pay them, and it was come every day at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
They knock on your window.
Or ring the village bell.
Right.
Yeah.
And, that job disappeared, but we had, 10 times more jobs in manufacturing, or perhaps, 100 or 1,000 more jobs in manufacturing. And so overall, I think the general trend is technology just creates more jobs. And so I'll give you a few examples how AI can create more jobs. Actually, it can create more interesting jobs. Entrepreneurship is a very American thing, right? It's America is the entrepreneurship country. But actually, new firm creation has been going down for a long time, at least 100 years. It's just been going down. Although we have all this excitement around startups or whatever. Silicon Valley is the only place that's still producing startups. The rest of the country, there isn't as much startup or new firm creation, which is kind of sad because, again, the internet was supposed to be this great wealth creation engine that anyone has access to. But the way it turned out is it was just concentrated in this one geographic area.
It looked, in retrospect, looks like a monopoly generator, actually.
Yeah. But again, it doesn't have to be that way. And the way I think AI would help is that it will give people the tools to start businesses, because you have this easily programmable machine that can help you with programming. I'll give you a few examples. There's a teacher in Denver that during COVID was a little bored. Went to our website. We have a free course to learn how to code, and he learned a bit of coding, and he used his knowledge as a teacher to build an application that helps teachers use AI to teach. And within a year, he built a business that's worth tens of millions of dollars, that's bringing in a huge amount of money. I think he raised $20 million. And that's a teacher who learned how to code and created this massive business really quickly. We have stories of photographers doing millions of dollars in revenue. So AI will decentralize access to this technology. So there's a lot of ways in which you're right, technology tend to centralize, but there's a lot of ways that people kind of don't really look at in which technology can decentralize.
Well, that promise makes sense to me. I fervently want it to become a reality. We have a mutual friend who shall remain nameless, so smart and a good, humane person, who's very way up into the subject and participates in the subject. And he said to me, well, one of the promises of AI is that it will allow people to have virtual friends or mates, that it will it will solve the loneliness problem that is clearly a massive problem in the United States. And I felt like, I don't want to say it because I like him so much, but that seemed really bad to me.
Yeah, I'm not interested in those.
I
think we have the same intuition about what's dark and dystopian versus what's.
Well, he's a wonderful person, but I just don't think he's thought about it, or I don't know what. But we disagree. But I don't even disagree. I don't have an argument. It's just an instinct. But like, people should be having sex with people, not machines. Right?
That's right. I would go so far as to say some of these applications are like a little unethical, like the preying on sort of lonely men with no opportunities for a mate, and it will make it so that they were actually not motivated to go out and date and get an extra girlfriend,
like porn 10x.
Yes, and I think that's really bad. That's really bad for society. And so I think the application, look, you can apply this technology in a positive way, or you can apply it in a negative way. I would love for this, doom cult, if instead they were like trying to, make it so that AI is applied in a positive way. If we had a cult that was like, oh, we're going to lobby, we're going to sort of go out and, make it so that, AI is a positive technology, I'd be all for that. And by the way, there are times where the culture self-corrects, right? I think there's some self-correction on porn that's happening right now. Fast food, right? I mean, just generally junk.
You're right.
Everyone is like, Whole Foods is like high status now. Like you eat Whole Foods. There's a place called Whole Foods you can go to.
Oh, that's right.
And people are interested in eating healthy. And
chemicals in the air and water. Another thing that was a very esoteric concern even 10 years ago was only the wackos. It was Bobby Kennedy cared about that. No one else did. Right. And now that's like a feature of normal conversation.
Yes, everyone's worried about microplastics in the testicles.
That's right.
Yeah,
which is, I think, a legitimate concern.
Absolutely.
So I'm not surprised that there are cults in Silicon Valley. I don't think you named the only one. I think there are others. That's my sense. And I'm not surprised because, of course, every person is born with the intuitive knowledge that there's a power beyond himself. That's why every single civilization has worshipped something. And if you don't acknowledge that, it doesn't change. You just worship something even dumber.
Yeah.
But so my question to you as someone who lives and works there is, what percentage of the people who are making decisions in Silicon Valley will say out loud, not I'm a Christian, Jew, or Muslim, but that like, I'm not, there is a power bigger than me in the universe. Do people think that? Do they acknowledge that?
Yeah, for the most part, no.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, like I think most, I don't want to say most people, but like, the vast majority of the discussions tend to be like more intellectual. I think people just take for granted that everyone has like a mostly secular point of view. Well,
I think that, the truly brilliant conclusion is that we don't know a lot and we don't have a ton of power.
That's my view.
Something, right. So like the actual intellectual will, over time, if he's honest, will reach.
But this is the view of like many scientists and many people who really went deep. I mean, I don't know who said it. I'm trying to remember, but someone said like the first gulp of science make you an atheist, but at the bottom of the cup, you'll find God waiting for you.
That's Matthias Desmet wrote a book about this, supposedly about COVID. It was not about COVID. I just cannot recommend it more strongly. But the book is about the point you just made, which is the deeper you go into science, the more you see some sort of order reflected that is not random at all.
Yes.
And a beauty exhibited in math even. And the less you know, and the more you're certain that that there's a design here.
Mm-hmm.
and that's not human or quote natural. It's supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
That's his conclusion, and I affirm it. But how many people do you know in your science world who think that?
Yeah, I can count them on one hand, basically.
How interesting.
Yeah.
That concerns me because I feel like without that knowledge, hubris is inevitable.
Yeah. And a lot of these conclusions are from hubris. Like the fact that, there's so many people that believe that AI is an imminent existential threat. A lot of people believe that we're going to die. We're all going to die in the next 5 years. It comes from that hubris.
How interesting. Until I met you, I've never thought of that actually that is itself an expression of hubris. I never thought of that. Huh.
Yeah, you can go negative with hubris. You can go positive, and just like, and I think the positive thing is good. Like, I think Elon is an embodiment of that, as like just a self-belief that you can like fly rockets and build electric cars is good. And maybe in some cases it's delusional, but like net will kind of put you on a good path for creation. I think it can go pathological if you if you're, for example, SBF, and again, he's kind of part of those groups, just sort of believed that he can do anything in service of his ethics, including steal and cheat and all of that.
Yeah, I never really understood. Well, of course, I understood too well, I think, but the obvious observable fact that effective altruism led people to become shittier toward each other, not better.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an irony, but I feel like it's in the name. If you call yourself such a grandiose thing, you're typically horrible. Like the Islamic State is neither Islamic or state.
No, it's totally
the effective altruists are neither altruists.
The United Nations is not united. No, is that wise. So I don't think, to your earlier point, that any large language model or machine could ever arrive at what you just said. Mm-hmm. Because like the deepest level of truth is wrapped in irony always. Right. And machines don't get irony, right?
No, not yet.
Could they?
Maybe. I mean, I don't take as strong of a stance as you are at like the capabilities of the machines. I do believe that, if you represent it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm asking. I really don't know what they're capable of.
Well, I think maybe they can't come up with really novel irony that is like really insightful for us. But if you put a lot of irony in the data, they'll understand.
Right. They can ape human irony.
They can ape. I mean, they're ape machines. They're imitation machines. They're literally imitating, like, the way large language models are trained is that you give them a corpus of text and they hide different words and they try to guess them. And then they adjust the weights of those neural networks. Yes. And then eventually they get really good at guessing what humans would say.
Well, then, okay, so you're just kind of making the point unavoidable. Like if the machines, as you have said, and it makes sense, are the sum total of what's put into them.
Yeah.
Then, and that would include the personalities and biases of the people putting the data in.
That's right.
Then you want like the best people, the morally best people, which is to say the most humble people, to be doing that. But it sounds like we have the least humble people doing that.
Yeah, I think some of them are humble. Like I think some people working in AI are really upstanding and good and want to do the right thing. But there are a lot of people with the wrong motivations coming at it from fear and things like that. And look, this is the other point I will make is that free markets are good because you're going to get all sorts of entrepreneurs with different motivations. And I think what determines the winner is not always the ethics or whatever, but it's the larger culture. Like what kind of product is pulling out of you? If they're pulling the porn and the companion chatbots, whatever, versus they're pulling the education and the healthcare, and I think all the positive things that will make our life better. I think that's really on the larger culture. I don't think we can regulate that with government or whatever. But if the culture creates demand for things just makes us worse as humans, then there are entrepreneurs that will spring up and serve this.
No, that's totally right. And it is a snake eating its tail at some point because, of course, you serve the baser human desires and you create a culture that inspires those desires in a greater number of people.